Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 7 of the anime series, Masamune-kun's Revenge. And aspects of this episode went against my expectations as we're getting into it, and I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be the typical summer break, beach-going episode, fan service aplenty, and everything like that. Surely we got hints of this, but the entire episode redirected about the halfway point and completely went into unexpected territory. And I thought pleasantly so, personally, because there was actually a lot of depth that came to the fore as a result of everything that was going on with this secretary, whom I believe they said was in the employ of Aragakiyaki's father, and, you know, she's had to invite everyone out, essentially, to her sort of vacation home, this island getaway and everything like that. She comes into class expecting to, you know, stick it to Makabe by inviting Kojiro, you know, because, of course, he's laid, like, hints around on her desk or whatever, you know, maybe we should get away and hang out for the summer break and everything, so he can keep an eye on her and keep to his plan of trying to get revenge on her, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, she figures she's going to stick it to him by saying, hey, Kojiro, why don't you come? Why don't let me invite you out, you know, and it'll just be the two of us and all this kind of stuff. And, of course, Kojiro, being the wingman that he is, he grabs on Makabe. He's like, I'm not going anywhere without Makabe. And then, of course, naturally, you know, Neko's like, well, if it's summer break, you know, you're not taking Makabe away from me. I'm going to go wherever he's going to go. And then the class rep is like all excited about going out to the beach and swimming and all this kind of stuff. So Aki is painted into a corner. She has to basically agree that all of them are going to come together, you know, spend some time at this island getaway. And it's interesting how Koiwai, who's obviously she's going to be there anyway because she's, you know, Aki's servant and such, she actually goes to Makabe and says, look, you know, enough dawdling around. Unless you do something impactful, unless you actually pick up your end of the slack for a change, I'm going to just reveal everything that we've been up to Aki and everything, putting much, you know, due pressure on him to actually try to do something. And it's, again, one of those things where I'm wondering how wide the gamut is of Koiwai's playing the field. If she is, in fact, playing him as well, trying to align both Makabe and, you know, Aki for some grander design, not so much to get back at either one of them, but to try to teach them both a lesson and align them and make them appreciate each other, because it seems as though, answering to my speculation, this is something that goes back to their youths, and it's very much, again, a point of my speculation was to say maybe it was Makabe's, you know, unbeknownst to him, his doing, that spurned Aki in youth and turned her into such a primo bitch. And as we're dealing with this secretary woman, you know, she's scathing against Makabe. At first, I was under the assumption she was scathing toward Aki, but it's because she wants Aki to grow up into this man-hating psycho bitch and everything, because she herself is kind of, you know, she's like living vicariously where she cannot be so spurning, because she's still falling under the charms of guys that she gets sidled up with and then gets turned away from and everything like that. She figures, well, Aki, from the get-go, as soon as I've met her, you know, in childhood, she was crying alone in the woods. We see her this flashback very early into this secretary's career working for the family. And she's asking, you know, the childish Aki who's crying, where's that little round boy I see you playing with? And Aki is explosive in her saying, oh, you know, he left or whatever, and I don't need him and all this kind of stuff. So that answers exactly to my speculation that maybe it was Makabe's doing. Whether he was aware of it or not, you know, he probably felt spurned by her. She was probably criticizing his weight or something like that, thought he was no good for her, and this, you know, led him on the path to becoming more healthy and more fit and all this kind of stuff, because he wanted to impress a girl like Aki. Whereas in doing so, he left her side and she felt abandoned, and so she grew this hate toward guys because none of them could ever be trustworthy. They would always leave her, and so she's demeaning and heartless to them, so that she herself will not be the one who is victimized or hurt and all this kind of stuff. It's a complete discombobulated, you know, sort of circular mess that both of these characters have created for themselves. And I love the fact that after we get this brief sort of, the whole episode, because I thought it was going to be like focused on having a beach roving affair, that kind of thing, especially with the title having the word incident in it, I thought there was going to be a falling out between Neko and Aki fighting over Makabe, because of course Makabe opens his mouth and insert the shoe, saying that he and Aki are dating, to try to, impress this secretary woman who's kind of nudging and playfully so at Aki and everything like that. How could you bring a boy and everything like this is the last thing she would ever assume of Aki, that she's actually become more tepid in her hate toward guys, that she would actually start dating one. And so that's what really sets her sights lethally so, in a sense, or at least to embarrass, Makabe, her sights against him. One of the next scenes, they're out on the beach for the first time. He's got his shirt off. He's like posing in the sunlight. The class rep chick completely ignores him. Kojiro ends up actually complimenting him. And then, of course, Neko shows up, and she's all rubbing up on him and everything. And, oh, will you put on my sunblock and all this kind of stuff, trying to entice him or whatever. And we really get no further ahead with figuring out what Neko's whole business is, what her deal is exactly in this episode. But, of course, Aki comes in and gets right between them, and she's like, hands off, this is my man. And when they're alone together, then she's like, she stops playing the game. Go get me food, damn it, and everything. And so, of course, we have this secretary, like, watching all of this, and she gives this grand idea of, because Makabe, he wants to figure out some way they can have fun, some way he can exploit the notion of trying to get he and Aki closer together. He's thinking in terms of, well, I'm going to scare the hell out of her, because this secretary comes up with this sort of abandoned haunted house framework, where he's then enlisted Koi-wai, to try to run around looking like a mashup of like Jason from Friday the 13th, and the dude Leatherface or whatever his name is from Texas Chainsaw Massacre and everything, to scare the willies and bejesus out of everybody. Lo and behold, unbeknownst to him, the secretary is there with the ghost face mask from Scream to do the same to him. She's planning on embarrassing the hell out of him the way he's trying to embarrass and scare the hell out of Aki, and that goes completely awry because Koi-wai ends up scaring her, and she ends up taking off, running into Neko in the woods, who for some reason looks ghostly and looks like blood is dripping out of her mouth, and I'm like, uh-oh, do we actually have an anemic character now? Like, what the hell is going on with this? And the secretary runs into a pole and smacks herself unconscious and everything. And so it completely went, took a left turn that I was unexpecting. I mean, this could have been a Halloween episode instead of a frickin' beach fan servicey episode by this point. And it all failed, but at the same time, it still seemed to work for the greater good, because everything that transpired was enough to sate Koi-wai and keep her from revealing all to Aki, everything that she and Makabe had been through, and she had told Makabe, she's been investigating Neko, and she cannot find anything in her past that would align how she knows Makabe and all this kind of stuff. So again, we get no further revelatory-wise with what's up with Neko, who she is, how she knows Makabe. As I said in the previous episode discussion video, it seems like his mother knows who she is and everything like that. So I'm wondering what the ties are that bind between them. But for all intents and purposes, I mean, we still kind of bring it back to the status quo. It's still pretty much the same by the end of the episode as when we began with the relationships between all of these characters. There was really no forward progression in a sense, but I think we got some progression and depth with Aki, in the sense that, well, yes, it's now closer aligned to my speculation that there was a falling out of sorts, or at least that was her perception of it between she and Makabe in her youth. Probably answering to why she is such a stuck-up bitch as she is nowadays in the here and now. And then getting to know this secretary a little bit, seeing that she's kind of an offshoot of the kind of personality Aki has taken to because of this falling out. She's trying to sort of primp Aki up and make her continue to be, she's got these grand visions of her ruling the world as sort of a hateful woman, a man-hating woman and everything like that. I'm all for women's empowerment, but I mean, not to the downfall of your own compassion and finding someone to be happy with and everything like that. And that's kind of what the end game wish is for me watching this show. I kind of hope that, you know, Makabe and Aki end up making amends and realizing who they are to each other if they don't already, you know, have a suspicion on Aki's part. In any case, Makabe, of course, knows who she is. But I think both of them are specious in their interpretations of what their relationship was as kids, as friends, and they've both been really misdirected, hardcore in their lives as they've grown up from that point, because they misinterpreted what that all amounted to and what that could have been. And I kind of hope, I'm kind of rooting that, you know, something pleasant comes out of it, you know, that they will find each other again and appreciate each other again and see that, you know, they really did all the while mean something to each other. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if that's where it's going to go. But that's kind of my loose hope in watching this. And I am still really curious as to who Neko is and how she became involved, how she knew Makabe and everything like that, how far down the rabbit hole Koiwai's plan is meant to go, her grand design, if she's really focused on just getting back at Aki and teaching her a lesson, or if it's a dual purpose of doing the same for Makabe, as I speculate. And yeah, just bring on the next one. I actually really enjoyed this episode for all of its unconventional twists and turns that I did not see coming. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you felt the same way about the episode. Overall, love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. And so yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.